They shredded my grandpa's $32 million will right in front of my face. They laughed. You're not family anymore. Just 1 week later, I was officially dead on paper, with a death certificate signed by my own father. The sickest part, the same people who killed me legally still mailed Christmas cards to the deceased, with a loving message, "Dearest son, rest in peace. Us law bans the dead from suing." They thought they'd created the perfect trap, but my grandpa turned me into a weapon from the grave. And right now, I have 24 hours before they turn that fake death into reality. Would you dare watch a ghost come back and make his whole family beg for mercy? If your family ever buried you alive, hit subscribe right now and join me digging up justice. Comment, never surrender if you believe the truth can't be killed. Have you ever walked into a room knowing every single eye was against you? I'm Caleb Vaughn, the son they kicked out at 18, flat broke. I came back today for one reason, to claim my inheritance from my grandfather, and to heed his final warning, don't trust the Vaughn name. My dress shoes echoed like a heartbeat. It was the only courage I had, like walking into war, but nobody cared. Julia, my stepmother since I was 12, barely glanced at me, like I was the coffee guy. My father, Mason, just gave a perfunctory nod. And Elliot, my younger brother, headphones dangling, forced into this drama when all he wanted to do was paint slouched, like he was waiting for a bus. He shot Julia a quick, helpless look, like his mum made him sit there. The lawyer, Mr. Harris, cleared his throat, signaling us to sit. "We're here to execute Richard Vaughn's last will," he started, his voice steady. "Per his request, all direct family members are present." I sat in the back, silent, same as always. Then he looked right at me, and for Caleb Vaughn, his entire personal estate, totaling $32 million, and control of VaughnTech. The air stopped. You could have heard a pin drop. "What?" Mason yelled, his voice cracking. "This will is fake. Check it now." Julia screamed. Before anyone could react, she lunged, snatching the document right out of the lawyer's hand. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice flat. Julia didn't answer. She just gripped the paper, her eyes spitting fire. "You don't deserve a single penny." Then she ripped it to shreds. Pieces fluttered down like snow on the floor, but I didn't flinch. I didn't reach for the confetti, because what she destroyed wasn't what she thought. They had no idea what my grandpa had hidden, or where. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment. This isn't just family drama. This is the moment you stop being silent. Are you ready to see what they never saw? "Give it back," I said, but she just kept tearing, the paper crumbling in her hand. Elliot leaned back and shrugged. "Come on, man. You always play the victim. Grandpa just felt sorry for you." "That's not it," I replied. But Julia hurled the fragments onto the floor, stomping on them with her heel. She was screaming, "Not a dime for you." "That's enough." "Mrs. Vaughn," Mr. Harris stood up, his voice sharp. "I won't let him steal this estate," Julia hissed through gritted teeth. She turned to me, her eyes bloodshot. "Now it's fair." I smiled, the first smile all day, because in my jacket pocket, right against my heart, was a tiny USB drive with my grandpa's recording, the proof of exactly how they pressured him. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. Mason crossed his arms, his mouth curling in triumph. "That's the price for betraying family." Elliot sneered. "You didn't even show up when Dad was sick, remember?" I stayed quiet, watching the paper confetti on the floor, like the ashes of a dream. But they didn't know that Will wasn't the only one. The one she tore was just a copy. Mr. Harris spoke up. "You just shredded one original, madam, but there are 4 more locked in the safe deposit box." Julia turned pale, staggering, as if the floor had dropped out from under her. From Julia's POV for copies. The thought hammered her brain. All their plans, their schemes, instantly crashed. Old man Richard, he beat her in the end. She shot Mason a look. His face was just as blank. Her hatred searched not for Caleb, but for her own useless husband. The 4 remaining copies, safe in the deposit box, were the real deal. Have you ever held a secret that could flip the whole world upside down? After Grandpa died, the lawyer gave me Richard's letter, revealing my father and stepmother's conspiracy. He wrote that Mason and Julia put him in a nursing home for professional care, but it was just to isolate him from VaughnTech. On his birthday, the whole family went skiing. No one visited. During a call, Mason forgot to hang up. Grandpa heard them planning to force him to hand over the assets to Elliot. They called him easily fooled and mocked him for dreaming of justice in his old age. He knew they had framed me as the bad guy, so he prepared The real will. The company's shares, everything had been transferred into a sealed trust fund. Untouchable. The wooden box he told the lawyer to give me was still tucked inside my jacket pocket, and I gave a faint, satisfied smile. It wasn't some cheesy family photo smile. This was slow, deliberate, like sunrise after the coldest winter night. They thought I was the exiled son, the loser who walked away. Let them believe it. Let them think they won this round. I stood up, slowly. My hand tightened on the empty wooden box. The propand I walked out. No goodbye. No dramatic exit scene. Just the sound of my leather shoes clicking on the hardwood floor. It sounded huge now. Outside, the cold morning air hit my face, hard. I didn't flinch. I slid into the car, tossed the wooden box onto the passenger seat, and opened the envelope Grandpa told me about. Only open after they destroy the will. Inside the stack of papers, the first thing was his handwriting. Let them think they've won. This is only the beginning. I drove to the private lot at First National Bank. Mid-morning sunlight burned off the last of the fog. I sat there for a minute, watching one yellow leaf fall from the old oak tree outside the building. The day felt eerily calm, too quiet for what was coming next. Inside, Mr. Carter, the longtime branch manager, met me. Cool, collected. He stood by the elevator. Mr. Vaughn, he nodded, pointing toward the vault floor. Everything is set, per Mr. Richards' instructions. We didn't exchange small talk on the way down. I appreciated that. I wasn't in the mood for pleasantries. When the heavy steel vault door slid open, it wasn't the cold air or the echo that gave me chills. It was the sheer weight of what I was about to look at. Mr. Carter pulled the safety deposit box, pushing it toward me with a gentle metal scrape. Take your time. I'll be right outside, he said, stepping away. I sat on the small wooden bench, staring at the box. The lawyer had given me the key and the family tradition password right after Grandpa died, with a strict note, do not open before the will is read. I'd repeated that password every night, like a promise. Now, as my fingers worked the lock, I whispered it again, family tradition. Inside, 4 things were neatly stacked. The original will, the deed transferring VaughnTech voting rights, a notarized letter on old VaughnTech letterhead, and a black velvet pouch holding a USB stick. That will made me gasp. $32 million and control of the company, signed in Grandpa's familiar hand. The paper felt heavier than I expected, like it held the weight of all the lost years they'd stolen from me. The notarized letter detailed everything. Mason and Julia isolating him in the nursing home, ditching him on his birthday, and plotting over a forgotten phone call, laughing about how easily fooled he was for believing I was a bad kid. He secretly contacted his lawyer to draft the new will, notarized by a man who'd worked with him for 20 years. He apologized for ever misunderstanding me. He wanted me to grow. He did all this through his private attorney, Sylvia Hayes, the one he trusted since he founded the company, just to make sure no one in the family knew. My chest constricted, not from pain, but from massive relief. I checked the USB drive in the car, plugging it into my laptop. The screen flickered. Then Mason and Julia's voices blasted out, a recording of them planning to forge his medical records, to steal the company. But wait, I saw another file. Elliot_2_grandpa.og. Elliot's voice, shaking. Mom and Dad are planning to erase Caleb permanently. I recorded them, but I need my tuition and the gallery show. You help me, I'll give you this tape. Caleb doesn't deserve it, Julia was saying. The old man is just dreaming of justice. Icily fooled, Mason chuckled. Then Grandpa cuts in, his voice choked. I was wrong not to protect you sooner. Has an apology ever stopped your heart? On the recording, my Grandpa Richard said, I was wrong. Caleb, you never asked for anything, but you always gave. Your silence, your endurance, that wasn't weakness, that was strength. You loved without conditions. I closed my eyes, my lips pressed tight. This is yours. Let them scream all they want. Stay cool. The law is on your side. His voice softened. You'll know when to speak up, but sometimes, silence is the sharpest knife. The recording stopped. Screen went black. I sat in the car, frozen, for a long, long time. The will, the deeds, the recordings, none of it could change the past. None of it brought back the lonely birthdays, or the cold Christmas Eve I spent outside, watching their house glow, knowing there was no present for me. That night, back at my rental apartment, I placed the empty wooden box, the one they thought held the real will, in the kitchen counter. I opened a drawer and pulled out the scarf Grandpa gave me when I was 10. It still smelled faintly of pine. I wrapped the original will, the deeds, and the USB stick inside it, stowing them in the safe behind my dresser. Then I sat down at my small desk and opened an old portfolio, rejected college letters, tech ideas I'd sketched when I still dared to dream. A memory hit me like a cold draft. Sophomore year, I came home early, hoping to surprise my parents. But my room was gone. No bed, no desk, replaced by Elliot's easel and canvases. Julia's voice drifted from the hallway. Cute, right? This is Elliot's art studio now. I didn't argue. I just packed up quietly. But I remember that night, sitting in my beat-up car, gripping the steering wheel, whispering, just push through. And I did push through. Now, holding the real documents, the ones nobody knew existed, they whispered something else. I'm not that kid anymore. I backed up the recordings onto a separate drive, printed legal copies, put everything into the fireproof box I bought that morning. Then I made some tea, sat by the window, watching the unchanged world outside, and I smiled. They think they won. They don't know the game just started. I was shocked I slept so well after everything I found at the bank, but the last 2 nights were pure, silent clarity. No tossing and turning, no rehashing old arguments. For the first time, the silence in my apartment didn't feel empty. It felt like a reward. So, when my phone rang at 6:13 a.m., the sharp sound felt totally wrong, alien. I reached for it, still wrapped in the wool blanket Grandpa gave me in college. No number, just unknown caller. I almost sent it to voicemail, but my gut screamed, answer it. Hello, Caleb. His voice was warm, but hesitant, like he was forced to call. It's Elliot. Sorry for the early hour. Look, are you free to talk? Just the 2 of us. I didn't answer immediately. Elliot rushed to fill the silence. Coffee, like old times. I just want to step away from this drama and paint. You know that. You picked the spot. The last time Elliot wanted a private talk, I ended up being blamed for ruining Julia's birthday party, because I didn't laugh at Mason's failed engineer joke. But I still said, sure, 11 a.m., Sunrise Brew. He agreed fast. Too fast. I hung up, deleted his number, just in case. The next few hours, I did nothing much. I reread Grandpa's old financial notes from the safe box. I let a pot of tea go cold. I paced my apartment. I just couldn't sit still knowing Elliot was plotting something. When I got to Sunrise Brew, the winter sky was a dull gray. Everything looked exhausted. I spotted Elliot right away. He was sitting in our old high school study spot, near the window. Have you ever walked into a meeting knowing you were being set up? Elliot sat there, jacket draped over the chair, a blue sweater wrapped around his shoulders, like we were about to reminisce. Caleb, he called out. His smile was bright, like he'd just walked from an art show. He stood up, almost reached for a hug, but then dropped back into his seat. His eyes darted away. I pulled up the chair opposite him, said nothing. It's been forever, Elliot said, stirring his coffee that he wasn't drinking. I remember those nights here. You with your engineering books, me just doodling, dreaming of my own gallery. I gave a slight nod. He always stole my pen. Elliot laughed too loudly. His hands were fidgety. Then he lowered his voice. Yeah, you were always prepared. The real engineer. He used to call me the 30-year-old engineer since I was 20. Silence dropped heavy. I sipped my chamomile tea. Then, like a switch flipped, Elliot changed his tone. Mom is a wreck since the reading. She won't eat. Dad looks like a ghost. They're heartbroken. Caleb, they think you abandoned the family. I raised an eyebrow, but stayed silent. Elliot's smile trembled. I get it. You always felt pushed out. But cutting them off like this, it's brutal. The tea was still warm, keeping me focused. I let the silence do the work. Elliot continued. His voice rushed. Mum made me call. Said I had to, or she'd cut my gallery funding. I just want to paint. Man, you know that. Grandpa used to say you held things too tight, that you were distant. I looked straight at him. He told you that, or did someone else? Elliot's lips pressed together. His gaze flickered toward the next table. I just don't want the family to fall apart, he pleaded. He tried to lock eyes, but I lifted my teacup. His voice trailed off. The will Mom tore up. Was it real? There it was. The real reason he was here. Elliot's voice cracked. Because if it was, man, that's a boatload of money. Caleb, I set the cup down gently. It was just a piece of paper. Elliot blinked. What do you mean? It's gone now, I said. The silence this time wasn't comfortable. It was sharp. Elliot's smile vanished. Whatever Grandpa left, don't make things worse. This family has lost enough. I stood up slowly, putting on my jacket. Then don't lose anything more. Wait, Elliot said, louder. Mum's thinking about contesting the will. I turned back. My face didn't move. Tell her to try. My voice wasn't angry, just final. Elliot's mouth opened, then closed. I walked out. It said nothing else that the cold wind cut through my jacket as I walked to the car. Every step broke a rhythm I had endured for too long. I didn't look back. Back at the apartment that night, I kicked off my shoes, shucked off the jacket that still smelled of stale coffee and tension. I stood in the kitchen, forgetting what normal felt like. My hands were still cold. I reached for the teapot, and that's when I saw a small white shadow under the door. Not junk mail. It was placed precisely in the middle. I opened the door and gently peeled it off the floor. No name, no address, just a sealed white envelope. The handwriting was sharp. It brought back a faint, hazy memory. I closed the door, sat at the counter, and stared at it. When I finally tore it open, inside was a single sheet of paper. No greeting, no signature, just one line. What they tore was not the final will. Say nothing. Act smart and check the deposit box at First National. You'll understand everything. I read it 5 times. I was frozen, not from fear, but from a sudden realization. The writer knew exactly what happened, and they were helping me. It wasn't until I was settled back in the car, driving out of the neighborhood, that the morning's events truly sank in. And then, my eyes scanned the windshield wipers. Another white envelope. My heart dropped. Someone waited for me to leave, then put it right there. I pulled over to the curb, my hands trembling as I opened it. The single line inside made the whole meeting with Elliot suddenly take on a dark, complex meaning. Elliot didn't send the first note. Don't trust him. The picture cleared up. Elliot wasn't the puppet master. But why warn me about the very brother who was begging for mercy? And if it wasn't Elliot, what was the true identity of this ghost? A new, terrifying question emerged. Have you ever held a key and felt like the whole world was waiting for you to unlock it? I opened the drawer next to the stove. Grandpa's old copper key was there, wrapped in a dusty handkerchief. He gave it to me when I turned 18. Keep this. You'll need it one day. I thought it was just sentimental junk. Never asked what it opened. Now, it felt heavy in my hand, like it carried the weight of all our distant memories. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on the couch in the dark, the envelope and the key on the table. The message from the letter swirling in my head, like someone was whispering behind me. The morning broke, gray and early. I called First National Bank, the same branch where Grandpa had rented his safety deposit box for 20 years. The clerk picked up after 2 rings. Her voice was short, sharp. Good morning, First National Safe Deposit. Hi, I said, keeping my voice level. I'm Caleb Vaughn, checking on a box belonging to Richard Vaughn's estate. Box 12, typing. Box number or Box 12. Passcode is family tradition. I replied. You're the sole authorized access. Do you have the original key? I do more typing. We can schedule you for 2 p.m. Bring 2 forms of ID. I made the appointment. Then I did nothing for hours. No calls, no music. The white tea got cold on the counter. I washed my face, changed clothes, tied my hair back, but my mind was already gone. At 1 p.m., I slipped the key into my jacket pocket, locked up, and drove in silence. The bank was on a quiet side street, bare trees, a discreet sign. The door chime was soft. Inside, it smelled of pine and quiet professionalism. The teller greeted me with a neutral smile. Box 12. I nodded, handed over the ID and key. She checked them, then led me down a corridor to a small, private wood-paneled room. 1 chair, 1 table, the sound of the vault door. She left me alone. I sat down and opened Box 12. 4 items. The original will, the VaughnTech deed of transfer for voting rights, a notarized letter on old VaughnTech letterhead, sealed with red wax. It read, only read if they shred the first copy. And the USB stick. My breath caught at the will. $32 million. Control of the company. The notarized letter made my heart physically ache. Grandpa wrote, if you are reading this, their true faces are revealed. The money is not the gift. The gift is knowing who to trust when they stab you in the back. Keep it close. Don't let them make you feel small again. It named the old, not in my chest, deep down, but right then, one question was bigger than the $32 million. Who sent the anonymous note that led me here? If it wasn't Grandpa, who knew Mason and Julia's scheme in advance? And why are they hiding? I repacked the box, closed it, and left the bank in silence, a heavy secret weighing on my chest. I wasn't just fighting the enemy in front of me. I was fighting a hidden ghost, pulling the strings. The second I stepped out of the bank, the burner phone in my pocket buzzed. A text from a random number. Short, deadly. Mason hired muscle. Run now. All the silence and calm I'd built up vanished. I bolted into the car, drove off without thinking. On the way back, I didn't turn on the radio. The silence now was heavy, terrifying. The feeling of being watched clung to the back of my neck like a film. I circled blocks, checking my rearview mirror constantly. Was it just empty paranoia, or was the tale too good? Back at the apartment, I shed my jacket, stored the documents in the safe, and just stared at my reflection in the mirror. My face hadn't changed, but my eyes were different, alert and exhausted. I was bracing for a war. I just didn't know where the first shot would come from. Just then, a faint shush sound under the door shattered the fragile silence. My heart skipped. I went to open the door, and again, it was pounding. Another white envelope. This time, it was hastily stuffed under the rug. Inside was a small piece of watercolor, hasty strokes, a sketch of a sunrise over the ocean, with a scrawled message, "I don't want this E. Elliot." I looked up, scanning the empty street. A figure briefly disappeared behind an old oak tree, but not before meeting my eye. The drawing wasn't just a note, it was an encoded warning. Sunrise, a beginning. Elliot was trying to tell me something terrible was about to drop, something he couldn't put into words. The next morning, that warning became a cruel reality. I tried to pay my rent. The account flashed locked. The bank mumbled something about a system error. I went to the tax authority. Denied. File does not exist. The final straw. At the insurance office, I froze. My life insurance file declared me dead in a car accident, based on forged medical records. Elliot's sunrise sketch was crystal clear now. I got it. They didn't just want the money. They wanted to erase me completely. I was standing numb on the sidewalk, trying to connect the horrific pieces. My phone vibrated. A text from a hidden number. Short, deadly. Don't go back to the apartment. They're waiting for you. Someone wasn't just tracking my every move. They knew exactly which terrifying truth I'd just discovered. I didn't go home. My gut told me that was suicide. My feet led me to the old public library. Grandpa used to take me there as a kid. Chipped stone steps, the smell of old paper and wax. Still the same. I found the row of public computers in the back. No login needed, just steady hands. I pulled up the estate email the lawyer had sent after the will reading. One email, marked unread, from sylvia.hayes@vaughntrust.org. Subject, do not ignore. My heart hammered as I opened it. The message was brief. They don't just want the money. They want the signature for VaughnTech control. Documents and sketch attached. My hands were ice cold. I opened the attachment. It was the VaughnTech deed of transfer for voting rights, signed and notarized 2 weeks before Grandpa died. My name, Caleb Vaughn, was clearly visible in his familiar script. Then I opened the sketch. A watercolor fragment, a rusty window with a blurry figure behind bars, and a scrawled message, "Help me, E. Elliot." My breath hitched. Now I knew. It wasn't just money. This was a battle for power, for the company, for the entire legacy. They didn't want me poor. They wanted me nameless, powerless. I didn't print or download a thing. Closed the browser, wiped the history, and walked out. The wind was brutal outside. Crossing the street to my car, the phone buzzed. Unknown number. My gut said, "Answer it." Hello. A low, calm voice, the one I remembered from Grandpa's funeral. "You opened box 12, didn't you?" My body went rigid. "Who is this?" "Sylvia Hayes," she whispered. She was the one Grandpa used to call Sylvia Orton before she changed her name, but she was his loyal lawyer for 20 years. Richard's lawyer. 2 decades. "Bring the box documents to my office tomorrow. We're suing Mason and Julia for fraud and duress. They're erasing you on paper. If you don't legally exist, you own nothing. You can challenge nothing." I froze. My hand gripped the phone like it was burning. Sylvia rushed on. "Check the Asheville property deed, the original, not a copy. Then go to the Asheville Historical Archives. Use your birth name. I left something for you, just in case." "Sylvia," wait, the line went dead. They weren't just stealing, they were rewriting me, burying me under fake documents, a fake history. My head was buzzing. The street blurred like a bad watercolor. I got back to the apartment, moving like I was underwater. Cars sped past. Dogs barked. Kids laughed somewhere. I barely registered any of it. Just locked the door, the deadbolt rattling shut. Tossed the keys onto the counter, clink. Then a memory hit me, sharp as a blade. I remember sitting in that coffee shop, trying to log into my bank account. The cold, mechanical access denied chime from my laptop was swallowed by the loud jazz music. That's when it sank in. The world was still spinning, but I'd been erased from the orbit. Back in the present, my hands were shaking. I opened my laptop, my heart pounded, ready to burst. I typed Caleb Vaughn, the name I'd been since birth. The result popped up. I forgot how to breathe. Status, deceased. Date of death, 2 weeks ago. Cause car accident. The chair beneath me felt like it vanished. The world went silent. Just the faint worry of the laptop fan. I hadn't just lost the will. I'd lost my entire life. At the Asheville archives, old paper smell hung heavy. Fluorescent lights flickered. The clerk tapped her pen. "Can I help you?" "I think there's a mistake," I croaked. She adjusted her glasses. "Show me." I spun the screen. Her expression didn't change. Sometimes files get mixed up. Dead name matches. But she leaned in, eyes narrowing. "This isn't a mix-up. This is a notarized, state-stamped certificate. Someone with power pushed this through." "How does this happen?" I asked, my chest heavy with dread. She hesitated. "Usually the hospital, estate management, or ... family. They faked my death," I whispered. She grabbed a notepad, scribbling, "File for correction at the records office. You'll need ID, social security, proof. It's a mess, but it can be done." Outside, the wind cut my skin, sharp as a razor. I felt exposed. Every breath hurt. Every step echoed too loud. The taxi ride to the Asheville records office smelled of plastic and ink. My hand shook as I pulled out my ID, social security card, everything proving I was Caleb Vaughn. The clerk, overly polite, typed something, frowned. "That's odd." "What is it?" I tried to keep my voice steady. "The social security number isn't active. That only happens when someone is deceased." I shut down. She looked at me with pity, like I was a ghost. I opened my banking app. Error. Account not found. Credit card. Locked. I couldn't even call the bank. I leaned against the counter, dizzy. The floor felt tilted. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. "Just a minute." She walked away. Outside the window, the city was alive. People grabbing lunch, couples laughing, kids waiting for the bus, backpacks heavy, and me, a living ghost with a heartbeat. Grandpa, after his third stroke, his voice slow and sharp. "If they can't control you, they erase you from the map. Power fears nothing but resistance." He wasn't exaggerating. I fumbled for my car keys. A small watercolor piece fell out a dark street corner, a figure pressed against a wall. Scrawled text, "Forced E. Elliott." My heart seized up. I left the building fast. The street smelled of coffee and exhaust. It wasn't just the will. It wasn't just the money. It was my identity, my legacy, my existence. They killed me on paper. My apartment wasn't safe. But the text from Elliott froze my blood. "They aren't stopping at the paper death." I called Sylvia. "They've declared me dead," I said, my voice raw from the frantic rush. "I know," she replied, her voice steel. "Bring the box 12 documents to Laurel. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. I'm preparing the suit against Mason and Julia Fraud. Duress of Richard, you will be resurrected." On paper and in court, I was about to hang up, but Sylvia added, her voice dropping, "And Caleb, do not go back to the apartment. I just got a warning. Mason is hiring a bounty hunter to handle this problem. A dead man who knows how to sue is a threat that needs silencing." Her warning came too late. The moment I hung up, the living room lights went dark. Loud footsteps and Mason's voice boomed from the hallway. "He has to be here. Don't let him slip away." My heart leaped. I grabbed the USB and the burner phone, vaulted over the second-story balcony, and crashed into the bushes below. Hasty footsteps and Mason's curses echoed right after the apartment door was kicked in. I got out, but only by a fraction of a second. They weren't playing clean anymore. I slipped into a corner coffee shop. The smell of burned coffee and stale cigarette smoke clung to the air. Using the free Wi-Fi, my fingers flew across the burner phone. quickly finding a cheap motel room. I booked it under a fake name, Caleb Smith. Caleb Smith sounds boring. Why not John Doe, the name they assigned to the unidentified dead? Faking a death certificate in the US is a federal offense, punishable by up to 5 years. They were playing with fire, and I was about to pour gasoline on the blaze. The receptionist was absorbed in her phone, not even looking up when I pushed the stack of cash through the dusty, opaque glass slot. The worn plastic keycard took 4 swipes before the door finally clicked, the hinge groaning a soft sigh. I dropped my bag onto the warped wooden floorboards, sat on the edge of the bed, and the springs screamed in protest against my weight. The walls were stained yellow and patchy, as if someone had spilled coffee and forgotten to wipe it a long time ago. The thin blanket reeked of stale cigarette smoke, like the entire town had chain-smoked in this cramped room. The wall-mounted air conditioner spat out weak cold air, shaking violently as if about to drop onto the concrete floor. None of it mattered. This wretched space was the perfect refuge for a non-existent person. I pulled out the USB from box 12, labeled CV in faded ballpoint, the handwriting shaky. Without hesitation, I plugged it in. The old laptop's cooling fan rattled, vibrating as if about to choke. The screen flickered, showing a single folder, one file, watch this.mp4. The room seemed to hold its breath with me. I clicked, my hand froze mid-air, my breath stopped. The video loaded slowly. The old static laptop that had been with me since college gasped, long overdue for an upgrade. Then my grandfather appeared, sitting in the sunny corner of the old house. Light filtered yellow through the thin curtains, a red cardinal perched on a branch outside the window, its feathers gleaming in the early sun, its beak tapping the glass softly. His eyes were tired, lids drooping, but he looked straight at the camera, as if seeing me through the cracked corner of the screen. If you are watching this, Caleb, they have gone too far. My chest tightened, as if someone had squeezed my ribcage from the inside. You were always different. Not because you wanted to be, but because they pushed you out. But VaughnTech, this trust, this legacy, it is yours. He paused, taking a raspy breath, a heavy sound that seemed to carry a lifetime of burden. I knew they would try to steal it. No, they were coming for you, he said, his voice firm as a nail hammered down. So I hid the final piece, where they would never suspect, the person they would never doubt. His eyes narrowed, sharp as they used to be when he ran VaughnTech. Sylvia Hayes, my lawyer. Her office on Laurel Street, Ash, everything is there, waiting for you. The screen went to static, then black, swallowing him whole. Before I could breathe, the phone vibrated again. On the other end was Sylvia's urgent voice. Caleb, forget the suitcase. Mason just hired a private investigator to find you. They know you're alive, and I just got a warning. They're giving you 24 hours before everything really ends. My plan had just begun, and my time was already running out. My heart hammered, like a drum beating before an old church, echoing. They buried me alive, but Grandpa planted a seed in the hard-packed dirt. I put the USB in my jacket pocket, looking at the mirror on the cheap wooden dresser, its glass foggy, cracked in one corner. My eyes were sunken, hair messy, but the fear was gone. Determination burned in my chest, like a newly kindled flame. It's resurrection time, I whispered, certain as a vow. I couldn't sleep. The motel bed was hard as rock. The springs poked my back like sharp thorns. The AC dripped, ticking onto the stained carpet, which smelled of deep mildew. Every half hour, a truck roared down the highway, shaking the thin window, the glass rattling. But that's not what kept me awake. It was Grandpa's voice, as if he knew this day would come, as if he had foreseen it. The phone vibrated. An email from Sylvia. Mason wired $12 million to Julia's account. VaughnTech system locked. The suit is filed. Bring the suitcase to Laurel. Mason also locked internal system access, preventing me from joining board meetings. I left before dawn, the sky still hazy. The Asheville air was heavy with humidity, clinging to my skin like wet clothes. I rolled down the car window. The cold wind lashed my face. The fresh pine scent overpowered the memory of cigarette smoke. The GPS guided me 40 minutes into the suburbs, past flickering neon grocery signs, past an abandoned gas station, into the pine woods. The road cracked like a shattered spiderweb. I drove past a bait shop with a faded, dangling wooden sign, a rusted grill tilted by the roadside. Then there were only trees, pine needles rustling in the early wind. A chain-link fence appeared on the right, old, with vines clinging to it. trying to hug and conceal it. Behind it were several low metal storage units, seemingly forgotten by time. The sign was faded, Vaughn & Co., emergency storage. I parked on the weeds. Gravel crunched under the tires, echoing in the silence. No movement, just the buzzing of cicadas, a distant crow cawing. To normal, like a prank. GPS prompted, Unit 12, 40 paces ahead. The unit gate wasn't broken, just peeling rust. The lock screamed when I turned the key from box 12. Red rust staining my hands, as if yelling its protest. Dust rained down as I pulled the door up. Light seeped through the dirty ceiling window, casting faint streaks on the cracked concrete floor. I stood at the threshold, breathing the dusty, metallic air. Cardboard boxes stacked high, rusty metal shelving, rolled up, moldy carpets, a few overturned office chairs with broken legs. Dead center, as if deliberately placed by him, was a heavy, black, fireproof suitcase. A piece of yellow tape was stuck on it, with Grandpa's handwriting. "If they ever destroy you, open this." I dragged the suitcase closer, sat on a wooden crate. The floor creaked under my weight. Suddenly, the sound of car tires screeching outside the storage gate echoed. I held my breath, listening. A car door slammed, followed by footsteps. I turned off my flashlight, hiding completely in the darkness between the shelves, my heart pounding. Someone was out there. Did they know I was here? Just one small sound, and everything would end. Fortunately, after a few minutes of deadly silence, the engine started up again and faded into the distance. I sighed in relief, but knew I didn't have much time left. My hands trembling, I opened the latch, the cold metal against my skin. Inside, a small audio recorder, labeled in handwriting, "For my grandson only." A watercolor sketch fell out, a person standing under sad eyes, with a scrawled message, "Forced E. Elliott." I pressed play. His voice, weak and trembling, filled the quiet space, like an echo from the past. "They told me they would put me in a nursing home if I tried to change it. Your aunt even brought papers that she claimed had been reviewed by the court. But I know what they are doing, so I left behind something they cannot touch." I blinked, holding back tears. "They don't just want to erase you, Caleb. They want you silent, but you, static noise. You are the legacy they fear." Beneath the recorder was a craft envelope. Inside, the original birth certificate, not the modified one Mason's lawyer presented 2 years ago, which added Julia's surname. This was Caleb Richard Vaughn, no hyphen, no edits. Then, handwritten letters, 10, maybe 12, all addressed to me. Most were One was dated before the official will was signed. Another, 2 days after the fake death certificate was filed. I flipped further. The draft of the will, signed and notarized, naming me president and primary shareholder of VaughnTech. My hands started to tremble. That date, after the death filing, they knew I was alive and still submitted it. Under the will, clipped in a hard plastic binder, was the land deed. My name, not Mason's, not Elliott's. Grandpa quietly transferred the land rights beneath VaughnTech headquarters through a private trust. That was the land under the headquarters, the very foundation of their illusion of power. I took a deep breath, and then another. This wasn't just robbery, it was war. I pulled out my phone, took photos of every page, every document. I scanned them using the encryption app I downloaded last night, uploaded them to a hidden drive, and backed them up in 3 places. I labeled the files by type: will, trust, identity fraud, land. The last file finished uploading. I took the burner phone I bought near the motel, dialed the number written on the back of the receipt. Estate Law Asheville office. A woman answered on the second ring. "I need to talk about a will contest and identity fraud," I said calmly. "Yes, and I want an in-person discreet meeting." I scheduled it for 2 p.m. today, leaving the storage unit. The Asheville midday sun was blazing like a mockery. I carefully locked the door, checking the latch twice before walking back to the car. Just as I opened the door, the burner phone vibrated. Voicemail. I put it on speaker. Caleb. Elliott's voice was broken, tearful. "If you're still alive, I never thought they would go this far. I knew nothing about the death certificate. I swear I didn't. I just signed where they told me. I didn't know what it was. Please, you have to believe me." A pause, then a shaky breath before the line went dead. I stood there, phone in hand, for a minute, motionless, thoughtless. Then a faint smile spread across my lips, bitter, cold. "Thank you for the confession, little brother. but in your voice, full of remorse, I heard a fragment of my old self, a boy who once desperately wanted to believe in family. I got in the car, buckled my seatbelt, and checked the lawyer's address again, but I didn't drive straight there. Instead, I turned into a small diner near an overpass, chose a seat by the window, and ordered a cup of coffee I had no intention of drinking. My hands were shaking as I uploaded every page of the documents to the encrypted cloud folder. The task was barely finished when the burner phone rang again. This time, it was a call. "Caleb, it's Sylvia." Her voice was tense. "Mason knows you were at the storage unit. Do not go back to the apartment. Go out the back door of this diner. A black car is waiting. It will take you to my office on Laurel Street. Ask for Clara, and you only have 24 hours left before they really act." I left a tip under the untouched coffee cup, left the diner, and drove toward the city center, passing the Vanderbilt building, a place I had often driven by, wondering if justice truly existed. Today, I would have my answer. The Hayes and Laurel office building looked like any ordinary law firm from the outside, but I knew that inside, it held secrets that could shake everything. Mason might be greedy enough to try and seize the entire company, but I had Grandpa's letters, Elliot's drawings, the image of the sunrise over the sea, irrefutable evidence. The real power of law offices isn't in the display. It's whispered behind frosted glass and heavy doors. I glanced at my reflection on the elevator wall. Sylvia Hayes, the lawyer my grandfather trusted implicitly, was waiting for me. My face was calm now, even somewhat refined. No one would guess that just 2 days ago, I was a man erased. Now, I carried my own name like a loaded weapon. At the reception desk, I spoke softly. "Caleb Vaughn, I have an appointment at 2:30 with Ms. Sylvia Hayes." The woman behind the counter blinked, just once. Her finger paused on the keyboard, as if waiting for someone to correct a mistake, but no one did. "Yes," she said, her voice neutral. "Please have a seat." The waiting room was quiet, filled with faint sounds and expensive silence. Before long, the door opened. She seemed to belong to another era, an elegant suit, slicked back gray hair, unforgiving eyes. "Caleb Vaughn," she stated, rather than asked. "I wondered when you would stop being their ghost." Her voice was neither sharp nor soft. Her voice was steady, like a rock anchor. She didn't speak to impress. She spoke like a battle winner, burying the unnecessary. I followed her down the hall, into a private, thick-walled room with a bolted cabinet. She pointed to the table. "What do you have?" I gently set the suitcase down, opened the documents, spread out the photos, and plugged in the USB. Sylvia didn't blink as she reviewed each page. She just nodded slightly, as if making mental notes. But when she opened Grandpa's letter, the handwriting shaky, "If they burn you, open this." Her eyes softened momentarily, just for a breath. Then she pulled out a drawer, placed a notebook on the table, and tapped her pen twice before speaking. "You're not going to like the next part." "I haven't liked much of anything yet," I murmured. She gave a slight smile. "Fair enough." Sylvia opened a separate file, pulling out a sealed envelope. Her fingers slid it across the table to me. "Your grandfather wasn't blind. He knew they would retaliate. 2 months before he died, he came in discreetly and requested a notarized affidavit and personal declaration. I looked at the seal. It was intact. He designated me as heir to the VaughnTech shares and the trust fund, not the land. "The land you already have," Sylvia said. "Mason transferred $12 million and locked the system, but we blocked it." This declaration was gold. I opened the envelope. His words were simple, typed. "I, Richard Vaughn, being of sound mind, amend my will, naming Caleb Vaughn as the sole heir to my shares and trust, excluding the land, voluntarily, and aware of the family dispute. Notary, Edna Monroe." The name I remembered from church summer picnics when I was a child. "She witnessed it?" I asked, my voice hoarse with memory. Sylvia nodded. "Retired, living outside the city, but she gave a notarized statement before 2 attorneys." I stared at the document. My throat was dry, not from anxiety, but justification. Cold, quiet, clean. "What now?" Sylvia leaned back in her chair. "Now," she said, "we contest the will. We request an emergency hearing based on concealed evidence and fraud. The court will decide who gets the ashes and who gets the empire." Silence settled round us. Then she added, "Don't contact them. Let them laugh in the press. Let them call you unstable. Every word is a gift." I took my phone from my pocket and showed her a photo. Julia, hand in hand with Elliot, in front of VaughnTech HQ, captioned, "Always on top." Sylvia didn't react. I said, "I called a reporter, published the photo, right below this article, before the suit is announced. Enough to humiliate them." She nodded. "Let them bleed slowly." I stood, gathered the documents, and shook her hand. Out in the hallway, my phone vibrated. No text, no voicemail. Elliot's voice. "Caleb, I messed up." I stopped. My heart clenched, but kept walking. The shareholders' meeting was waiting. I would announce the affidavit, the Mason recording, my grandfather's letter. No one is being pushed out, except the liar. I would say Mason would fall. I wouldn't do interviews, wouldn't sue Elliot, just restructure VaughnTech. Elliot's drawings, on the ocean. I just want to be free, in the car. Suggested reconciliation. The anonymous letter in my pocket. "You haven't won the blood. Vaughn is not your name," I told myself. "I don't need the name. I only need the truth." Elliot's voice was shaky, thin, ragged, almost desperate. "If you're still alive, I didn't know they went that far. I didn't know about the death certificate. I swear, it wasn't me. Please don't abandon me. I didn't sign anything. It was just, Dad, please." I listened twice, then saved it. Out on the street. I smiled. Not cruel, not arrogant, just profoundly calm. "Thank you for the confession, little brother." The night before the hearing, I didn't sleep. Not from worry. Worry had burned out last week, when they left me and never looked back. When they laughed online. When they showed off checks like badges of honor for abandoning me. But now my chest was heavy, a tremor beneath my ribs, like an undertow. Not fear, but the knowledge that I was about to finish this. That morning, I walked into the Asheville courthouse with a straight back, my hair tied, Sylvia beside me, her rhythm calm, matching mine. She glanced briefly toward security. The last chance to pull out. I met her eyes. They deserved every word. Across the marble lobby, we followed the sign to courtroom 3A. Too quiet. So quiet I forgot how loud the truth could be when Inside, Mason and Julia sat next to each other. Mason wore a blue blazer, wrinkled, as if he hadn't bothered to iron it. Julia wore pearls, crooked, as if they knew they were out of place. They didn't look at me, but their mocking smiles were undisguised. Their lawyer, young, smug, loud, leaned back in his chair like he had already won. That made what came next all the sweeter. Judge Harlan entered, grave as always. He spoke little, but every word weighed as much as the courthouse scale. The session began. Procedure, will language, turning pages, submitting documents. Sylvia stood. She wasn't rushed. She spoke like she knew silence was her ally. "Today, we are establishing the contested will of Mr. Richard Vaughn." The opposing counsel stood. "Your Honor, the latest will, dated last February, leaves the principal assets to my clients." Harlan nodded. "Proceed." Sylvia calmly opened her briefcase. "We submit an amended will, witnessed by legal counsel, signed 5 months later, designating Mr. Caleb Vaughn as the sole heir." Mason snorted. "Fraud." Harlan raised a hand. "Your turn will come." Sylvia didn't blink. "Furthermore, we have a notarized affidavit from the retired notary who witnessed the signing, and correspondence proving Mr. Richard was of sound mind." The young lawyer rolled his eyes. Family disputes over new wills are not uncommon, especially among distant relatives. Sylvia smiled slightly. "We anticipated that objection." She touched her tablet, connecting it to the courtroom screen. The lights dimmed. My grandfather's face appeared, gaunt, his eyes gentle yet sharp, lying in a hospice bed, an oxygen tube in his nose. But his voice was clear as day. "If they're back in court, it means they did what I feared. If you are watching this, it is because I know they want to erase you, but you cannot be forgotten." I stopped breathing. He looked straight into the camera, not weak, not confused, just tired and weary of the acting. "They forced me to sign a will I did not want. They threatened me. They want to steal the company, transfer the funds elsewhere, telling you that you only want to steal what is not yours. I am weak, but I am not gone. I changed it back, quietly, and I had honest people witness it." He paused, swallowing softly. "They will pretend this is about fairness, but you and I know it's about shame. I am not ashamed of you. I am ashamed of letting them win." The video ended. Julia let out a choked sound. Her lawyer urgently whispered to her, but she waved him away. Sylvia was not done. She submitted a printout. "Your Honor, we submit messages from Elliot Vaughn to Mr. Richard, in his final months, advising him to follow the script, or there would be quick trouble. This evidence will be used for the shareholders to depose Mason. No shouting, no drama, just the truth. Judge Harlan leaned back slowly. His face was unreadable at first. Then he shook his head. I see greed, I see malice, but rarely do I see both so loud and so stupid. He looked directly at Mason and Julia. You defrauded the court, concealed coercion, and destroyed documents. Mr. Vaughn is the legitimate heir. His identity will be restored. Mr. Mason's transactions will be nullified, and all signatures will require Mr. Vaughn's approval. Judge Harlan looked at me. Mr. Vaughn, you are confirmed as the sole legal heir. The assets will be transferred. I exhaled, but he wasn't finished. As for the defendants, your actions require investigation. You will face review for coercion and forgery. I order your accounts frozen and a penalty for contempt of court. Mason jumped up, as if to argue. The judge didn't even look. The session is concluded. Outside the Asheville courthouse, people hurried by, and I felt a difference. Not just the spring wind. Lighter, as if a burden had been lifted from my back. I stood alone on the steps, papers in hand, when a reporter with a mic approached. Mr. Vaughn, do you have a statement? Any words for your family after this? I paused, looking out at the street, the passers-by, the car horns. The world hadn't stopped for my story, but my life had changed. I turned to the camera. They said everything they needed to say when they denied the only love that ever truly saw me. I walked away, not in anger, but in peace. In the office, I convened the VaughnTech board. Before the council, I announced the affidavit, the Mason recording, my grandfather's notarized letter. No one is pushed out, except those who gain by deceit. I said, they unanimously agreed to remove Mason. I became CEO. Elliot sent a sketch, Sunrise on the Ocean, with the words, I just want to be free. I did not sue him, but the court victory came with a price. To save VaughnTech from the $50 million debt Mason had deliberately incurred, I had to sell 40% of the shares. Sylvia handed me the final agreement, criminal immunity for Mason and Julia. Elliot texted, my daughter needs an organ transplant, $2 million. The pen in my hand suddenly felt heavy. I took a deep breath and pressed the pen down. The signature Caleb Vaughn scrawled on the paper, the name they had tried to erase just months ago. Now I was voluntarily selling 40% of my grandfather's company's soul to save the child of my betrayer. Won the law, lost the blood. Bitter, indeed. Mason and Julia walked free. Elliot kept his 5% share. I kept the company and the permanent silence. They still send Christmas cards every year, addressed to Caleb Vaughn, alive and well. I never opened them, but I still kept everything so that one day, when Elliot's daughter grows up, she will know exactly who her grandparents are. A man who is dead on paper had just brought his entire family to their knees, but I chose not to trample them. True victory is not in revenge, but in the choice to forgive to save a child. If this story touches your heart, if you believe that compassion and justice deserve to be spread, then right now, please subscribe to the channel. Your action not only supports us, but also sends a message. No one is left behind, and every pain deserves to be heard. The next story will make you believe that justice still exists, and you are a part of it. Join us in exploring the healing power of the deepest wounds. If your family declared you dead to steal your assets, would you, A. prosecute everyone? No forgiveness, B. forgive to save your niece comment, AORB. Now, I'm reading them all.